Thank you for tuning into Through Our Lenses. Today, I've got a very special guest with me. This is my best friend of like 15 years.
Something like it.
Something like that. You know, sharing. So, Alicia, before we dive in, I will let you introduce yourself to everyone.
I am Alicia Renee. Like Tori said, we've known each other for 15-ish, give or take, years. I don't know, what should I tell the people?
Y'all, she sings. You want to give us a sample?
I mean, I guess I can. I'll hit y'all with a classic real quick.
Give us a little snippet, like 30 seconds or something.
Operator, put my baby on the line. 'Cause just the other night, we had a horrible fight. I admit that I was out of control, but I still love my man with my body and soul. The road gets rough. You say things you should not say, but I never want to treat my baby that way. I apologize.
Well, thank you, girl. That was so good. Okay. All right. Well, let's go. Go move back into what today's topic is, and it is how to deal with the loss of a loved one. And so, last year, Alicia, you lost someone very close to you. And so, can you explain to everyone who that was and what your relationship was like with that person?
So last May, I lost my father, and honestly, I'll be really transparent. Our relationship was not that great. I feel like since, early childhood, we've always really struggled to be on the same page, and definitely seeds planted of what would later be, quote unquote daddy issues or what have you. And I'll be honest with you, I thought that would have made it easier, but I definitely don't think that was the case.
So we'll go back to the daddy issues.
Okay.
So to kind of transition into, where were you when you got the news? So here you are, you and your dad, you guys haven't spoken in quite some time, right? Am I correct?
So actually what happened was we hadn't talked in 5 or 6 years. And then I actually got a text message from my neighbor down the street letting me know that he had a stroke. And when I got the news, I was really conflicted, because I'm like, do I let everything that has happened go and just act like it didn't happen and show up like, hey, let me, be there for you and all that kind of stuff? Or do I hold on to what's happened and just basically let it ride? So it was about a week before I actually went to the hospital to go see him. My sister went immediately, but I didn't have that urgency on my heart. But after really thinking about it, I was like, it's not about him, it's about you. Like, at the end of the day, would you be okay with this decision if something were to happen? If you weren't able to, have any further conversations with him, or what have you, would you be pleased with the decision that you made? And that was my push and my catalyst to just go ahead and go up there.
And for those of you watching, I said, me and Alicia have been friends for quite some time. I mean, we grew up around each other, stayed at each other's houses, all that jazz. But I remember before you went to the hospital, you had called me about it. and you had mixed feelings about it.
Definitely.
And for people who know me, when it comes to my closest friends, I ride or die for them, and I feel their pain. And so for you, in so many ways, and I loved your dad, but I knew the pain that he had caused you.
Definitely.
And so in my mind, it's like, here's somebody who has mistreated my best friend. My boxing gloves are up, right? But then I had to, okay, wait a second. You've been in your Bible, you've been doing all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And with Pastor really preaching on forgiveness and learning to put things aside, I had to, okay, let me get out of the physical and really pour into you. And I know we had that conversation about should you go, should you not go. And I will say this, I was so proud of you for going. Because a lot of times, we can talk, we read scripture, we read the Bible, and we feel motivated. But when you actually are put in a situation where you have to apply it,
yeah,
it's a different story.
It's a completely different story.
It's easy to, think when everything's all good. Okay, yeah, God is good. Okay, well, now I'm really being tested. And I think, in my opinion, for you, that showed a lot about who you are as a person. Despite everything that he had put you through. Because he had put you through a lot for so many years. And so I understood your distance.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you have to love people from a distance for your own sanity, for your own peace.
Definitely. I'm a big believer in calling a spade.
Yeah.
And I don't think that toxic behavior and toxic relationships are limited to boyfriends or friends or coworkers or what have you. Sometimes it can be a family member.
Yeah.
It can be your sister, your brother, your mom, your cousin, what have you. And as an adult, you have a decision to make. Are you going to continue to let somebody who every time you talk to them, you feel drained. Every time you talk to them, you feel less than. Every time you talk to them, it's a conflict and you getting cursed out and it's this and it's that and the other. Sometimes you just have to separate yourself from those people. Yeah. And that's okay.
It is okay.
That is okay. And I think so often people will tell you otherwise. Especially I feel like in the Black community, we're so quick to, but that's your mama, that's your such and such. That toxic is toxic.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Exactly right. So let's go back to, you went to the hospital, right? And I want people to know this piece because it's really crucial in your testimony. So here you are, you have prayed about it, you've got yourself in the right mind space or mind state or whatever. You're like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna let bygones be bygones and just make sure just be there to support my dad.
Yeah.
So here you are. You're in a good space. Tell me about your experience being in the hospital room.
I go in the first time, and I can be honest in that I wasn't really expecting the best, but at the same time, I was trying to be as neutral as possible and not have any expectations whatsoever. And I came in and, we're talking and this, that, and the other. And probably maybe 5 minutes into it, he's back to the same stuff, which was the reason and the inception of us not talking in the first place.
Yeah.
Speaking to me a certain way and referencing extremely negative things that, had happened in the past, so forth and so on. So it was unfortunate, and I definitely left questioning why I went in the first place.
Yeah.
But I went, and I went for me, and I fulfilled my own goal, and I couldn't be, upset or anything like that at anybody because I did what I came there to do, regardless of what the outcome was.
Yeah. So you left the hospital, and how did you feel after you left? Did you feel like you made a mistake, or you felt like you did the right thing?
Honestly, both. I feel like I was sitting in the car, you know, like hella emotional, feeling kind of played a little bit, honestly. But I feel like at the same time, I'm like, you did it. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a person that you have distanced yourself from and that you viewed almost in a Goliath, larger than life kind of way for so long.
Yeah.
So to come back in and say, hey, I'm here, you know, optionally and of my own free will and choice. And then when he started to cut up, I left. But I think that was such a powerful moment for me to have my own power.
Yes.
And be like, I'll be here when I want to be here. And if you want to cut up, that's fine. But I'm also grown, and I'm going to grab my car keys and go on about my business, and you be blessed. You know what I'm saying?
But no, you have to do that, though.
You have to do that.
And you, at least, you know, look, God, I did my best.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was there. I did my part. So the rest is in your hands.
Definitely.
And I think, you know, and you knew your limits. So
For
him
sure.
cutting up, it didn't allow you to lash out at him because he's done he's been a certain way, verbally abusive for so many years. And I've noticed how that has affected you as a person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially little girls, we look up to our dads.
Definitely.
You know, our dads are our everything. And when that love and affection isn't given back to you in the way that you so desire, it's tough. It's very, very tough. So for you to be able to, you know, hold all of that inside, be there for your dad, and then know when he was getting ready to take you to a certain place, okay, all right, well, like you said, God bless you, have a good day, and you knew your limits, so he didn't take you there.
Yeah.
So if you could go back into the story, so you've left, can you walk us through when you got the news that he had actually passed?
Okay, so I definitely want to answer your question.
Yeah.
But I can't answer that without kind of the interim.
Okay, go ahead.
Because, you know, even after that first encounter and we kind of had it out for, you know, lack of a better term, and I was like, why the hell did I come in the first place? I should have just left him alone. He was just on my heart really heavy. So, and I didn't realize how much built up emotion I had invested in this one situation that for so long I was able to ignore because we weren't talking. And it was so easy to be like, oh, that doesn't matter, I don't care about it, it's not a big deal. But it was still just as big a deal to me as when we had first stopped talking. I just hadn't revisited it. So I actually ended up going back to the hospital, and he started up again. And I told him straight up, I said, look, I can either be here or not be here. And how that takes place is 100%
On you.
up to you. I didn't curse him out, even though I wanted to. I feel like when you grow up with like really overprotective and over aggressive parents, you always have like this fantasy of being like, let me tell you how.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's always the case, but it did not play out like that. I was real calm about it, and I was just like, look, you know, basically, I'm an adult now.
Yeah.
So I want to be here to support you, but you're also responsible for creating an environment that's conducive for me to do so.
There you go.
So that happened for, I'm trying to think, he was in the hospital for maybe another month. And then he went into home care, and I would stop by the house frequently because, you know, his house was in my territory for my job, and I, you know, work outside, so I could stop by and this, that, and the other. But I was taking him to doctor's appointments and coming by and making sure he had lunch and, you know, cleaning him up and changing his clothes. And, you know, I was doing everything. So this is from the time I got the call 3 months later. I was at my boyfriend's house, sleep. My phone rang. It was like 5:30 in the morning. And I just knew.
Yeah.
I just knew. My sister called me and she was like, Dad's in the hospital. Lorraine said that he was having issues. They were doing work on him. Like the ambulance came to the house, this, that, and the other. And he's on his way. So I'm like, okay, I'm on the other side of town. And while you would think the first reaction would be one of haste and emergency, I honestly didn't know what to do. I really paused for a second and I was like, okay, well, I mean, I have to go to work, so do I put on work clothes and then go to the hospital? Or do I go in what I have right now? Or do I this, do I that? And there were so many scenarios playing, which sound absolutely ridiculous in hindsight, but it's like in the moment, I was just kind of like frozen. So finally, I end up just going to the hospital in what I had on. I called my manager on the way and I'm like, look, this is the situation, whatever. I get to the hospital and maybe no longer than 10 minutes after I had been there, the doctor came into the room that they had separated the family in and they gave us the news.
So, and I appreciate your transparency on how your initial reaction was. So here you've got this hurt build up, right? He's shown you that he hasn't changed. And now that you learned that he's passed and you guys haven't fixed that relationship.
Yeah.
And now you get the news that he's passed and y'all never had the chance to fix the relationship. So how did that affect you? Once it finally, the dust finally settled, it all hit you. Okay, wow, Dad's really gone.
I was a wreck, an absolute stereotypical fallen, take me to Jesus. Like, I was an absolute wreck. But I wouldn't say that we didn't have a chance to fix our relationship.
Okay.
I don't think that it was fixed in a sense of a formal sitting down at the table. I apologize for X, Y, and Z. Do you accept my apology? And then me saying, hey, I accept your apology for these item lines that have been, stated and what have you. But I think you have to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older in my separation from him, and even more so in the 3 months that I spent with him before he passed, so many things were made very apparent to me in that life is hard.
Yeah.
And I think we really take that for granted. I think as children, we look at our parents almost in this godlike fashion, as if they are all-knowing and all-seeing, and they're at the ultimate level of maturity, and they should know how to deal with every situation, and all of these different things. And it couldn't be anything further than the truth. They're just trying to figure it out, just like everybody else is. And as I get to know more about who he was and how he was raised and things that happened to him, I definitely think that there were some areas that weren't paid attention to that manifested themselves in his adulthood, and I can see why his behavior was the way that it was with us. But in those 3 months, in us spending time together, in me taking him to his doctor's appointments and this, that, and the other, there were definitely silent apologies made in his own language. And had I not been open, I would have missed that. So I definitely think that, first of all, I hate cliches. I hate quotes that are in heavy rotation and things like that. But I'm a big believer in God will give you exactly what you need. And I think about how I was introduced to the situation and just him having the stroke in the first place.
Yeah.
I look at as such a blessing, because that could have been a completely different call.
Right.
You know, I could have just gotten a call out of nowhere. We haven't talked in 6 years.
Yeah.
Hey, he's gone.
Yeah.
I would till this day still be devastated.
Right.
But to have the opportunity to go back, spend time with him, you know, the fact that my job was perfectly, you know, in the circumference or perimeter, whatever you want to call it, of where he lives, and my life didn't skip a beat, you know, taking care of him, it was major. Yeah. And it played a big part in my healing. I think that by me being angry with him for so long, honestly, I think that there was a lot of blessings that I tied up in my own life by
being distant,
by having that animosity towards him, by not really forgiving him, or even be willing to even sit down and really think about the why behind the what.
Yeah.
So I feel like it was just transformational all around. I learned so much about myself in how much I'm just like him, whether I want to admit it or not. But it was, I'm so thankful for that time, for that 3 months, because I don't know what I would have done without it.
In a way, I feel like it healed a lot of open wounds.
I would agree. I would agree. And I think that before I looked at healing as a destination, but it's really like an ongoing
absolutely it's a process
for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But it pushed me, you know, quite a few miles down the road as far as, you know, my journey is concerned. But
wow. Woo. So you guys were able to patch up a few areas. I want to move into this segment for people who haven't been around death. Can you tell us about what it was like when you were taking your dad to his doctor's appointments and helping him around the house?
A lot. My father was a big man, not only in stature, but in personality, in views and thought points. Everything that he did was just big. So more times than not, he could be a lot to handle. You know, even while he was in the hospital, he loves talking to people, and, you know, he'd have the nurses who weren't even assigned to him coming in his room, asking them for advice, talking about how their boyfriends ain't shit and what should they do. And, you know, first of all, he had paralysis on the whole right side of his body. No, left side of his body. But, you know, he's like talking to people with half a mouth, trying to advise them on their lives and this, that, and the other, which is like so right up his alley. But I remember one day specifically, my sister called me. I was working and I worked close by, and she was like, "Hey, did you know that Dad was driving?" And I'm like our dad? Like the one who has paralysis on the left side of his body?
Yeah. Like, where you thought you were going?
Where are you going? So she was like, "Okay, well, I'm on the other side of town. I can't go get him, but, you know, apparently he's run out of gas, and it's like on the side of the road." And on the side of the road, he was in the neighborhood, parked at the pool, and which just so happens to be where he ran out of gas. So I'm like,
well, at least it's a blessing in disguise.
Okay. So I go over there, and I'm like, what you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? And he's like, oh, you know, it's not a big deal. Like, I just got tired of being in the house and, like, wanted to, like, take a little...
Pause.
Ain't no taking no little cruise and you only got half a body. You know what I'm saying? Like, it, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it sounds bad, but, dude, you got...
Yeah, you gotta think things through here. Yeah.
But that was totally him. And then a week later, he's like, are you gonna bring me lunch? So I said, okay, no problem. So I go by the house. I think I brought like Chick-fil-A or something like that. And I walk in the house, let myself in, and I'm looking around the house for him. Now, mind you, he's in a wheelchair. He should not be that hard to find.
Yeah.
So, can't find him. And then I walk through the kitchen, and the door to the garage is wide open. Door to the garage is wide open. His wheelchair is in the garage. Truck is gone. I said, Lord, he's driving again. So I call him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I told you I was going to be at the house at such a time. I said, where you at? When I tell you he sounded like a 16-year-old that got caught stealing a car. He was like, oh, you know, I'm just, I'm around the corner. You know, shit, I'll be right back. I said, okay. So I go outside. And I'm standing like somebody mama with one hand on my hip on the driveway, watching him come around the corner and up the driveway. I'm like, no, what you think you're doing?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So now I gotta go get his wheelchair, help him out the truck. Because that's the thing. He could get in the truck.
He just can't get out.
But he couldn't get out.
Yeah.
So he'd be waiting on my stepmom to get home off work. So he'd be just sitting in the truck sometime for 3 and 4 hours at a time. Because he didn't feel like just being in the house. But it's like, that's just the kind of dude that he was. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? He's like, F your rules. I'm going to do what I want to do. I don't care that I only got half a body. I only need one arm and one leg to drive. Like, F what you talking about? So that was that. But just situations like that, he was always just like such a maverick, such a handful. But you really had to, like, I really had to sit him down and be like, you can't just drive. What if you have another stroke and you're behind the wheel?
Right.
What if you get into an accident?
And it's not just you on the road, it's other people as well.
It's not just you on the road. You know what I'm saying? You've got your phone with you, but what if you drop your phone and now you can't get it and you just out stuck somewhere? You run out of gas, you get a flat tire, whatever the case may be. So we definitely had to pump the brakes on that. But yeah, he was out cutting up.
I believe it.
For sure.
Oh man, so you would say that time together brought you guys closer?
I would, because I feel like it's the moments like that that really make me realize how much I'm like him. Because regardless of what the situation looks like, what the rules may say, I'll be like, look,
I'm gonna do what Alicia wants to do.
This what we gonna do. You know, even at work, my coworkers, you know, they'll come to me. And, like, there'll be, you know, some drama popping off or whatever. And they'll be like, so what we gonna do? And I'll be like, I'll tell you. So.
A little rebel of the group.
Straight up. You know what I'm saying? Man. You gotta have your own mind and be, you know, just flat-footed about things. Yeah. And I definitely got that from him.
Wow. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. Because I think it's really important that... people know how to support a friend or a significant other who is going through a tough time.
Definitely.
And losing a parent, especially I'll say, even at any age, but when you're young still and you lost a parent, it's tough, right? So, like I'll say, be very upfront and honest. When your dad passed, I was like, okay, how do I be there for her? Because I remember a year before my grandmother had passed, and I was terrified. I haven't been to a funeral since I was maybe 6. When my great grandmother died, I had not been to a funeral since then. And it's like, okay, how do I be there for her? But I'm also afraid. I know there's something to be afraid of, but it's just it's an unknown territory. And it's like, it's unknown for me, so I got to get myself together and be all there and for myself, but then also try to be there for somebody else. So it was a lot going on, a lot of mixed emotions, and I don't know if I did everything right. And I probably didn't, because I was struggling on, okay, when is too much is too much. Okay, like there was times where I felt like you were distant. I'm like, I called her, she didn't answer. Okay, I'll give her a day. I'll call her, she didn't answer. Okay, well, I'm gonna text her. But then, you know, I was like, should I go to her house? I asked my dad, I was like, you know, should I go to her house? Should I not go to her house? Like, when is too much is too much, you know, for somebody who's lost a parent. For you, and give advice for others as well, what do you think we, people in my position, should do to help those who are in need of comforting?
So there is no one size fits all solution.
Yeah.
When it comes to grief management, comforting somebody who's going through, there just isn't. But when it comes down to it, I feel like everything falls into some very basic categories. If you don't know what to do, food, money, time, period. People who are grieving will forget to eat, or they will, you know, just wait forever to do so. There were times where I didn't have any groceries in the house, but I also didn't feel like leaving the house to go anywhere and be dealing with people and this, that, and the other. I'll never forget, I went out to get food and was in the McDonald's drive-thru, and the lady got on the talk box, asked me what I wanted, and I just broke down. Like, I couldn't even order my food because I was crying. So I'll definitely say food. Like, keep your people fed. You know what I'm saying? It's so simple. It's so basic. It doesn't have to be, you know, filet mignon or anything crazy. But, you know, if you can get send some pizza by the house, or, you know, whatever. I always feel like homemade things are the best, because I'm a big believer in the transference of energy. And I think when you do something and you put your own love and care and time into it, when you give it to somebody, I feel like they receive it the same way, versus going to go buy a cake and it's just, okay, you know, that's it. Time is another big one. You know, when somebody passes, you have to talk about cleaning out closets and space and planning for funerals, and, you know, all of the subtle nuances that come along with that you don't even really think about until you're there. So time is definitely a big one. Even if you just come and just sit with somebody. I think so often we get caught up in, what do I say? But you don't have to say anything.
It's just your presence.
Just come be present. You know, and depending on your relationship with that person, you know, come spend the night. Come, you know, hey, I'm in the other room if you need me. You know, whatever the case may be. But those things are so helpful and so relevant, because to lose somebody who is so monumental to you and so instrumental in your life, you're in such a broken place already. You don't have the strength outside of that to say, I need you to support me and this is how. You know, when he passed, I got so many phone calls. Let me know if you need anything. Let me know if you need anything. Let me know if you need anything. And when I tell you, that phrase almost makes me want to gag at this point, because I feel like if you care about me, just like faith, I feel like love is an action word. And if you care about me, do something. I don't care what you do. I don't care how you start. Pick up something, choose something, and do it. But how dare you ask the person who is grieving, who is going through, who can't sleep, who can't eat, who isn't right in their mind at the time, well, what do you need from me? I don't even know
what I need
from myself right now. You know, I haven't showered in 3 days, and you talking about well, what do you need from me? Like, I'm about to bust out an itemized catalog. Well, actually, the lawn needs to be mowed, this, that, and the other. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
I say identify something that needs to be done, pick it up and do it. And, lastly, if you don't have you may not be a good cook. You may not know what the spots are. People, got all kind of crazy food allergies and this, that, and the other. You may not be comfortable sending food. You may not be close enough to the person to just pop up and this, that, and the other. But money is major. When somebody passes, especially when you're talking about somebody who is the financial leader of a household, there are all kinds of things that need to be done. Funerals are expensive. There may be closing costs for houses or repair costs that need to be taken care of, or even just the time that people have taken off of work to grieve or to plan or what have you. You never know, what that situation is. So be present financially, but whatever avenue you choose, I'll just say do something. Because unfortunately, we will all have our turn.
Right.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, it may not be you today, but it will be.
It's coming, yeah. And I'm glad that you said that, because I think so many of us, we don't know what to do when we kind of get caught up in that, okay, I'm going to say a prayer for you and your family kind of deal, or let me know if you need anything. And
people get uncomfortable, and their first go-to is, oh, well, I just wanted to give you some space.
Yeah.
I feel like that's such a cop-out. Like, no, you wanted to give you space because you didn't know what to do, and you didn't know how to handle the situation, and it made you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So you backed up until I gave you signals that you were familiar with and comfortable enough with to reintroduce yourself into my life.
Safe situation, yeah. Well, this is why we have talks like this, to educate people.
This is why we do it.
So now people know it's action.
For sure.
And even if you don't know what to do, just like you said, pick up the phone. Okay, I drove by the house. I saw the grass need to be cut. I'm going to come by and I'm cut it,
Because that whole time period,
you got so much going on,
is a blur. And there's so much that needs to be done, and this, that, and the other. And you're trying to balance emotion and responsibility and care. And, not only am I caring for myself, but I'm trying to look after my other family members and, all that kind of thing. But, just definitely, get in there and do something.
Yeah.
Because I remember every single person in hindsight who stepped in and stepped up and did something. And I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
For forever indelible, and if those people need anything, you know what I'm saying? There's zero hesitation, but I have no question, no fogginess in my recollection of who was there and who was present.
Yeah. Alicia, let me ask you this in closing. So, if you could give 3 things that you want people to take away from this interview, so to speak, what would those 3 things be?
I would definitely say the 3 things that I want people to take away is that, 1, grief is not perfect. There is no formula. There is no timeline. You will process it in your own way, in your own time. Don't let anybody push you to feel like you're going too fast, too slow, whatever the case may be. I feel like the second thing would definitely just be open. And that's a difficult thing to say when you are walking around with an emotional open wound. But remain open to healing the relationship on your own, in your own mind, if that's something, you know, that needs to take place, to receiving the love of the people that are around you, which seems like it would be a very simple thing, but in a time like that, it's a very conscious effort to do so. And lastly, I would just say be unapologetic. If you're not in the space to talk to people, communicate that. You know, if you're in a space to where you don't want to go to the funeral, don't go. You know, if you don't want to, just whatever the case may be, if there's something that's weighing on you in a way that's, gosh, I really don't want to do this. I really don't want to, like, I didn't go to the viewing of the body. The viewing of the body the day before the funeral. My grandma got all dressed up. My sister got dressed up. Her husband got dressed up. And they all went. And there was this, like, silent shame that I didn't go. But I know me. And I knew what I was about to go through the next day.
Yeah.
And emotionally, I had $20 of emotional space left in my account.
Yeah.
And the viewing was going to take up $25. And I still got to go through the next day.
Yeah.
I ain't paying no overdraft fees. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, I would say just be honest with yourself and don't feel the need that you have to explain any move that you make to somebody else.
It's not about them. It's about
you.
It's
not about them.
It's absolutely about you.
And when you have a family, when you talk about my dad, he was a son to my grandmother. He was a husband to my stepmother. He was a father to me. But even between me and my sister, he was a different father to me than he was to her. So everybody has got a different relationship with the same exact person. And everybody is going to grieve differently. And that is okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Everybody's going to have their own roles in that process. So yeah, my last thing would just be, do you. Don't do anything that makes you feel pressed, uncomfortable. You know, land on Plymouth Rock, don't let it land on you. Like, straight up.
Wow. You have to know your limits.
Always.
You have to know your limits.
Always.
Well, guys, I want to definitely say thank you to Alicia.
Thank you for having me.
I know that this was a very sensitive topic for you, and I know it hadn't even been a year.
No.
Yeah.
It'll be a year in May.
Yeah. So it's still fresh.
Yeah. So what were we, like 7 months? Something
Yeah.
like that? So
for you to be very open and honest with us about your true feelings, I definitely appreciate that, and I hope that everyone watching and listening will take the advice that she gave, and implement it. Yeah. You know, I think that there's a lot of power in understanding the lessons from other people's struggles. So thank you again. And this concludes another episode of Through Our Lenses. Thanks. Have a good day.